have a pile of handouts here that I wasn't able to distribute earlier.
Yeah, the staff will take them, they'll distribute them. And as I mentioned earlier, the committee members review all the testimony, so the staff will pick them up and they can distribute them later. So I would proceed with your testimony.
Okay. My case also was reviewed by an independent news blog called Divorce in Connecticut Blogspot. And I encourage you all to take the time to look at that. It said a lot of things, not exactly what I would have said, but it exposed this case, and it exposed Judge Adelman for what he did to me. Very quickly, very unfortunately, I'm a victim of severe domestic violence from my hands of my former spouse. Nobody wants to be a victim. I don't want to sit here and say that. No one wants to hear it. My divorce commenced in New York in 2005 after the police removed him from the home. It's a well-documented case of physical, psychological, and economic abuse. V1-1541, 99.5.82. I was beaten and abused throughout the marriage, throughout everything, and then we came to Connecticut, and then he filed again as the plaintiff, the continual plaintiff. In 2014, my divorce was finalized, where I have custody of my daughter. We are in Lower Fairfield County, Darien, and Westport. Domestic violence is about power and coercion. And unless you understand that, you cannot sit on a bench and make rulings about these issues unless you are studied and learned and spent time. Judge Adelman, it appears systematic sexism throughout his rulings, discussions, how he behaves, and even here today, he doesn't seem to be aware of his ugly systemic sexism. From Judge Adelman was my judge from July 2015 until he left the Bridgeport court. The following is what he, now I'm going to discuss exactly what he did. And they were a series of ex parte decisions. I've not seen my daughter now for 1 year and 2 months and several days. A bunch of innuendo and classic sexist statements like, oh, she's mentally ill. He came into the courtroom without anything except his own word, and Judge Adelman awarded him, remarkably, my 12-year-old daughter. Okay, I'm going to be very quickly. I have to, there's a few things
Sure,
I have
just
to...
please summarize. You may get a question, too, from it.
Okay, so no Christmas, no Easter, no Valentine's Day, no Mother's Day. Judge Adelman made the most abhorrent, with nothing to support his decision. Then asking for help, being the defendant, he then appointed a Republican politician who's sitting up there today as the person to watch over my daughter. And then, without a chance to choose again, he then appointed her again as the GAL. That is the person who has been able to see and talk to my daughter, but I've not been able to. Judge Adelman didn't order, toyed with me about maybe ordering psychological evaluations, maybe ordering supervised visits, maybe ordering a family relations.
Okay, let me see.
Every single one of my motions was denied.
All right, any questions from Representative Gonzalez?
Thank you.
Can you repeat your name again?
Stevan. Okay, Stevan case.
So, in your case, is over?
No.
So you still, so we
I am very fearful of retaliation. There's no question. I've had 2 people leave today. I've been receiving texts nonstop. There is, I should not, as a mother, have to fight against somebody who is sitting here. The checks and balances of a GAL are nil. The checks and balances of who Judge Adelman not giving me a choice, and then he picked again and again someone who there was already a grievance in the court. There's another grievance that Judge Adelman didn't disclose today against him. My daughter was taken abduction style. She was taken from her school, taken from her home, changed her phone, given her new things, and had a new life. And I was never granted an evidentiary hearing. I was talked over. I was bullied. My daughter learns in school that bullying isn't allowed, but yet bullying's allowed in the courtroom. Bullying's allowed with a rich plaintiff, and bullying's allowed in Adelman's courtroom very easily.
So it was in your case, it was no complaint about neglect or abuse from your part.
From my part.
I'm just.
Oh, after several months, when my daughter was completely removed and isolated from her mother, and she was completely in a house of hate. Hate is taught. It is not natural. It is taught. It's taught in mob behavior. My daughter was taught to mimic and parrot her father's words. And yes, months after not seeing me and not seeing any of my friends, family, or any of your community. And she's a little 12-year-old girl. She's not 15. She's not 16. She's not 18. She's 12, very vulnerable. If a 55-year-old man walks down the street and he takes a little girl and he seduces her into thinking, come and live at my house and have a new life, she's not going to talk back. I couldn't speak back to her when I was married to him. I wasn't able to speak back. She did not have the ability. Her only voice was somebody sitting there, which was no voice at all.
So you still have the same garden ad litem?
Pardon?
You still have the same garden ad litem?
She should have removed herself from this room. It is upsetting to me not to have her Mother's Day, Christmas, and this person is able to sit here. I think that what's really hard I think you were trying to speak to it today, but when you appoint somebody a GAL, they are supposed to be looking after the confidences of my daughter. And then to have that person be appointed to a different role after we had already asked for anybody else, not 15 names, anybody else. There's 200 GALs available or AMCs in Lower Fairfield County. But instead of appointing somebody of any list at all, he chooses again to appoint somebody who there's already been major grievances written about. She was written about in the news about a Ponzi scheme. She had malpractice things going on right when she was supposed to be looking after my child. I can't be with my daughter, but yet somebody who's being written about on the internet, abhorrent things, and she's in a public position, a Republican politician from Naugatuck, way out of my community. There's no reason for this person to be chosen again. There is no ability for that person to be unbiased after she was already in the role of an AMC. You were supposed to be in the role of AMC looking after my daughter. Then suddenly she's supposed to be unbiased and be the GAL and represent both of us.
So right now, do you have an AMC? Did the judge appoint?
Yes, he did.
So he did. So you're still going in the case?
Judge Adelman even went farther than that. He had nothing to go on because he didn't have any evaluations. He had no PhDs. He denied all of the PhDs who did tell him this is an emergency. He refused all. I was never allowed a hearing. My ex was never asked to sit on the stand, and I was never allowed to cross-examine him. Judge Adelman decided the word mental illness. Mental illness is just a crazy word that's put on a lot of women.
Right.
I'm no different than the other women in Darien.
Do you know there is a process, and I know it's kind of hard sometimes, because I know that when a guardian ad litem asked the judge that she or he want to get rid of that case, right away the judge will agree and they remove the guardian ad litem. I know that happening. But when a mother or a parent, they go and they ask the judge to remove the guardian ad litem, because whatever reasoning, you can have proof about that. I know that it's hard, and the judge, they put a fight to it.
I reported under oath, I believed this person had bullied my daughter into saying, make reports on your mother, make reports on my mother. That's what she did to me. Tell me what you did negative. So I'm very confident that I had submitted to the Honorable Judge Adelman, please, anyone but this woman, can I not have a choice? And it was just nothing. It was just motion after motion, not being able to see my daughter over and over and over again. This is in Connecticut in 2016. This just happened. And he came in here today and he still doesn't even realize when he's talking to you. It's so sick. There is no such thing. People ask me everywhere I go, where's your daughter? Where's your daughter? We were inseparable. I raised her almost alone for 12 years. Not that these other things would have probably added much to it, the psychological evaluation or the family relations thing that Judge Adelman said he counts on, but he just ignored all my motions. He was obsessed with saying, well, we'll wait and see, we'll wait and see. Well, my hearing took place, I went back to court. He took her September 25th on an ex parte motion. An ex parte motion filled with innuendo, nothing but hearsay of a man who despises me openly and publicly. He asked for something that was amoral. He asked for full legal and physical custody with no contact of this woman. Their alarm bells should go off. Mr. Adelman stated in 4 transcripts I read, he says, this ain't my first rodeo. I've done this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long time. He kept saying that to you guys today. I'm telling you, the man is not educated in what happens in domestic violence. He's not educated in children. Children are taught hate. And he says, well, the child didn't want to see you. My daughter was just 12. She didn't know what she was saying. She's in a little tiny thing. You don't go on what a little girl who's been taken from everything. And yet, Judge Adelman said, well, that was the way. In the very end, just before January of 2016, I asked him to please write down, explain yourself, sir, and give us a memorandum of law. And because he had nothing, he wrote in his memorandum of law that, well, because he had no evaluation, no all these other things, and he had no testimony, he gave me no trial, he said her demeanor in court wasn't well. My demeanor in court, I have the soundtrack now you can all listen to. It's me hardly being able to speak. It's Mr. Adelman yelling, insulting me, saying things such as, things that you'd say to a rape person when you say, well, you wore a red dress, you obviously deserved it. Your child is alienated from you because you must have done something to her. These are wrong. These are ignorant statements. These are people who have not spent time understanding what child alienation is. It's like she's been Patty Hearst. It's like she's been Stockholm Syndrome. That's what happens when you take her primary caretaker away and everything away. She's in Westport, right down the road from me. But this man was so unimaginative.
Okay, Representative Gonzalez has a question.
I just want to say to finish the sentence.
Well,
she was so unimaginative.
Representative Gonzalez, please let Representative Gonzalez speak. She's a member of the committee.
Okay, I will say to you that I will recommend to you to go back and file a motion to remove your guardian ad litem. Now, I know because I've been in his court. And I know
she's giving him work. He's giving her. He's up here deciding her.
No.
Excuse me. Attention, please. Representative Gonzalez, please.
Okay,
Representative Gonzalez, please. Let's again, as I said earlier today, we're trying to keep decorum in this committee.
Right.
And we don't. This is a committee. We're trying to achieve respect for the public and the committee members. And I will not tolerate personal attacks. You can have a private conversation. We're all entitled to our own opinions. But again, I don't want legislators attacking people. I don't want citizens attacking members of the committee. So I would suggest maybe you two can have a conversation off, and you still have the floor, Representative Gonzalez.
Right. I will say that, I would recommend, let's not attack anybody here. He's right. Let's see how we can fix the problem. And even though that I've been in his court, and I know his attitude, I know he's a bad judge, and I know that he will do whatever he want to do, but at least go back and file a motion to remove the guardian ad litem, and you've taken some chances with him. He might remove her, he might not, but then you have to also...
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order.
What's the point of order, Mr.
Chairman, to echo your sentiments earlier, I think it's important to maintain the decorum of this committee, and it is inappropriate as a member, as one of its chairs, for one member to publicly attack or make charges against or to dispense legal advice concerning another member. And I would ask that, the chair that this line of discussion not continue.
Can I respond to that?
Let me just speak first. So,
Okay.
The point, well, first I'll let you speak, Representative Gonzalez, please.
Well,
Just speak to the comments by Chairman Tong.
right. And what I'm saying is what we passed in 2014. So it's very clear. I don't have to give her that advice, but it's very clear. If she checked the state statute, it says that she has the right to go back and apply and file a motion to change the gardening item. I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm saying what is in the state statute.
I'm very
Representative
unfortunately.
Gonzalez, I agree, but you are stating on the record, the legislative record, you're advising a member of the public to make as a council to make a motion in the court of law. I don't think that's appropriate in the committee process. We're at a public hearing. I don't think you should dispense legal advice. As a lawyer, I would not dispense legal advice to anyone in this situation. And yes, you're right; it's your opinion, but I think it's inappropriate to be said on the record at a committee meeting. What you say to any member of the public privately is another matter, but to put on the record, I think it's inappropriate. And Chairman Tong would like to make a comment.
Okay.
I'd also like to add, Mr. Chairman, that I don't think the status of the GAL in this case and whether or not the GAL should continue is germane to the question of Judge Adelman's qualifications to serve on Superior Court. If
I'd like to respond for 1 second.
No, you cannot respond. Chairman Tong has the floor.
So I would ask, as a point of order, Mr. Chairman, that we rule this current line of discussion out of order because it is not germane to the question of Judge Adelman's qualifications to sit and on the Superior Court and his renomination to the Superior Court, and that if there are further questions, that we refocus on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will decide at this point that I think it is appropriate that we should not be heading down this road of considering the qualifications of a GAL. At this
Okay.
point in time, I would ask
Okay.
Representative Gonzalez, you can proceed with the competency or the suitability of Judge Adelman as a judge. But again, we shouldn't be getting into the merits of a GAL in an unrelated case. So again, we're at a confirmation hearing today, so the point is well taken. I would ask Representative Gonzalez to respect the chair and just narrow the focus there. Thank you.
As a state representative and a legislator, I will say to you, go back, ask for a copy of the state statute, read the state statute, and do whatever you have to do.
Thank you.
Senator,
No, at this
No,
point, that was not a question.
no,
At this point- No,
I've
at
been
this
trying to say
point.
for 10 minutes. I did that, and it was rejected
Okay,
by
well, first of all,
Judge
there's no
Adelman
question
again.
pending at
Okay.
this point in time. So I'm the chairman. I hate to say that. At this point, do any of the further members of the committee have any other questions? Any other questions?
Senator Dole.
No, there are no further questions. I will now call the next member of the public. Thank you very much. The next member of the public is